Hello everyone, and welcome back to another week of the Backlog Bunker. The only thing I really had to talk about this week is Mega Man 2, and unfortunately, as much as I wanted to like it, because it's clearly the most popular Mega Man game, it was actually worse than 1, which surprised me. In terms of the normal levels themselves, it was actually easier than 1, but that's not a good thing. In terms of actual level design, I would say that 2's is better than 1's, but the thing that makes 2 easier than 1 is Metal Blade. As any Mega Man 2 player will tell you, Metal Blade trivializes like the entire game. Imagine the Mega Buster, but it's omnidirectional and does like 3 times as much damage. On top of the fact that it uses like no weapon energy, meaning that you can just spam it and you'll probably get the energy back from the enemies that you kill with it. This, of course, also applies to the Robot Masters, whose weaknesses that I don't necessarily know off the top of my head, because my answer to all of them was Metal Blade. Okay, so the first half of the game is pretty trivial. What about Wily Castle? Well, Wily Castle sucks dick for the exact opposite reason, being that it's way too hard because it will shove actual soft locks in your face. The Boo Beam Trap is a boss that requires the mandatory use of a weapon that you do not have enough charges to be able to kill the boss with, meaning that if you want to actually beat the game, you either have to go back to the beginning of the stage and pick up the energy tanks there, assuming you didn't pick them up at the beginning of the stage, because obviously, or you have to grind energy on all the Sniper Joes outside, which is going to be fucking impossible to do without dying. Then there's the game's second to last final boss, which is the Wily Robot, and in its second phase, it can shoot balls at you in a pattern that is impossible to dodge, like genuinely, actually not possible. Which, to be fair, isn't technically a soft lock, but it is guaranteed damage you have to take. Or the game's final boss, against the alien, where you have to use the bubble attack, and if you don't, game's over. At least until you get a game over, at which point all of your energy will be refilled, meaning it's not going to be that much of a problem, but it is still technically a soft lock. So all of that, combined with the fact that Wily Castle itself is a pretty big difficulty spike, is what leads me to conclude that Mega Man 2 just isn't as good as 1. Which wasn't a high bar to clear, but never say never. For being what is absolutely the most popular Mega Man game, it's unfortunate how disappointing it was. And that just leaves us with the weekly topic, and I'm going to be digging back into the Kojima well for this one, because he said something pretty interesting a while back. And when I say a while, I mean a while. I've been holding on to this topic since before I took the Backlog Bunker break. The quote from Kojima goes, "If everyone likes it, it means it's mainstream. It means it's conventional. It means it's already pre-digested for people to like it, and I don't want that. I want people to end up liking things that they didn't like when they first encountered it, because that's where you really end up loving something." And while I think Kojima might have been onto something with this idea, I think he's still stupid and wrong. This apparently comes from a story told about Kojima changing the story of Death Stranding 2 while testers were playing it, because apparently they were liking it too much. And that presents us with the first problem, which is that testing groups are a very limited sample size and are informed by the environment they tested in, and you can only know how polarizing something is once everybody's played it. And on top of that, I'm not sure his part about things being mainstream is even necessarily true. Like, yes, if things are purposely designed for mass appeal, then I would absolutely say that they are conventional and that they're, like, pre-digested. But if you just make a thing, and then it ends up being massively liked and popular, that doesn't retroactively make it conventional. With this kind of mindset, would Kojima call Dragon Ball or One Piece conventional? With this kind of mindset, would Kojima ever call some of his favorite movies pre-digested slop? Sorry, 2001: A Space Odyssey, too many people like you, so you're just pre-digested. You know, you were made for mass appeal. You can go to Kojima's Twitter right now and find previous tweets of him praising movies that would absolutely be mainstream, but he obviously had praise of them, so what's the deal? Though you could argue that Kojima was being very literal, in that he doesn't want to make anything mainstream, but he doesn't care if other things are. And that just brings up my third problem with what he said, that being that Kojima seems to be ignoring the most important part of creation, whether or not the person creating the thing likes it. If Kojima has a problem with making things that are made for mass appeal, then wouldn't the opposite also be true? If you're making something with the specific purpose of everyone not liking it, then aren't you just making the thing in reaction to the audience? Especially if, like he said, what he really thinks is good is when people don't like a thing and then they end up liking a thing. So it's gonna become mainstream after everybody doesn't like it? So is it only a problem when things start out being mainstream? On top of the fact that trying to do this is kind of impossible anyway, because you can only control the story, but you can never control what people think about it. I have no idea what the general consensus on Death Stranding 2 is, because it seems like people don't really talk about that game all that much, but from what I understand, people generally like it. If anything, I have yet to hear a bad thing about the game. Does this mean that Kojima will consider Death Stranding 2 a failure on his part? Because that would be bizarre. Plus, it's strange that he would say this at all, considering the fact that he's making OD with a mainstream director with mainstream actors. If Kojima really cared about not being mainstream, he wouldn't be getting a bunch of big name actors in all of his projects. He would be making Fizzant with a no-name, or fucking Nick Cage. Can't wait for that game in 2030! I've almost certainly already mentioned it at this point, but can we just stop announcing games 50 billion years ahead of time? Anyway, that's it for this week. Get out of here, we're done.